A few days ago, I released a video in which I talked about Ubisoft's latest troubles and what a dire state the company has been in lately. The video is titled Ubisoft Stock Plunges, 3 Games Cancelled, Skull and Bones Delayed for a 6th Time, and CEO's Awful Response. In the video, I showed the stock price itself plummeting after its previous peak back in January of 2021, and that stock price has dipped even more recently because of the latest investors call where Ubisoft revealed that they canceled 3 unannounced games and delayed Skull and Bones yet again, on top of highlighting the fact that certain games have failed to meet sales expectations like Mario + Rabbids Sparks of Hope and Just Dance 2023, all of which has led the publisher to downwardly revise its net bookings forecast for its current fiscal year 2022 to 2023 ending in March. And for improving their prospects in the future, they're hoping that they'll be able to make some 200 million euros in cost cuts over the next 2 years through targeted restructuring, divesting some non-core assets, and usual natural attrition. And they're also hoping that with game releases like Assassin's Creed Mirage, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, and other yet-to-be-announced premium games, including a large one, which are set to come out in 2023 to 2024 fiscal year, that they'll be able to rebound from their recent financial woes. Keep in mind that all of this comes on top of the fact that last July, Ubisoft had canceled Ghost Recon Frontline, Splinter Cell VR, and 2 other unannounced titles, bringing the total number of canceled games in the last 6 months to a whopping 7 games total as reported here by Kotaku. And making matters worse is the fact that a number of ongoing Ubisoft projects are in development hell, like Skull and Bones here, which has been, as of the publishing of this article back in July of 2021, an 8-year nightmare, now a 9 to 10-year long nightmare. A project that they're stuck with because they made a deal with the Singapore government that won't let it die. There's a Prince of Persia remake, which looked something like this when it was first announced back in September of 2020. I mean, you can see for yourself that it looks like utter ass. And there's also a title that's seen numerous delays to the point that they have to keep reaffirming that the game has not been canceled, though there are questions as to its current development state, given that recently the company decided to cancel all pre-orders. And then there's Beyond Good and Evil 2, which even after all these years is still in early development, and it has actually broken the Guinness World Record for longest game in development, destroying Duke Nukem Forever's record. Not to mention the negative PR that the company has drawn because of its toxic work environment that is rife with harassment, abuse, misconduct, and discrimination, all things that the executives and Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot have yet to address properly, all of which was happening in parallel to a streak of delays, cancellations, cost-cutting, you name it. Ubisoft leadership and CEO Yves Guillemot in particular have been taking the Ubisoft ship and essentially been leading it into a collision course with an iceberg. But of course, executives will blame the employees for leadership woes, as news outlet Kotaku here reported when they got a hold of a copy of a letter to staff which read, "Today more than ever, I need your full energy and commitment to ensure we get back on the path to success. I'm also asking that each of you be especially careful and strategic with your spending and initiatives to ensure we're being as efficient and lean as possible." This was an email to staff, and in addition to that quote, you've got this banger right here. "The ball is in your court to deliver this lineup on time and at the expected level of quality and show everyone what we are capable of achieving." This is the CEO scapegoating accountability for the company's recent woes to the employees who have just been following the captain, an incompetent captain at that. He's placing the onus and responsibility of putting the company back on track on the employees who are working hard under the guidance of leadership who have been misguiding them towards a cliff. The insinuation being that if the company continues to fail, it'll be because you, the workers, didn't work hard enough. You didn't give it your all. It should come as no surprise that employees were none too happy to receive this email, and workers have finally had enough. This right here, ladies and gentlemen, is a tweet by Solidaires Informatique, which is the union that represents workers at Ubisoft Paris, in response to Yves Guillemot shifting the blame and onus of the company's latest failures and the company's need to course correct to workers. They tweeted, "Call to strike Friday, January 27th afternoon." Now this next bit is poorly translated, so instead I'm going to go to Google Translate. What this bit actually says is, "Mr. Guillemot wants to put pressure on his employees. Let's respond to him with a strike." Attached to the tweet are these images that feature a statement that has been translated by news outlet Kotaku. I'm going to go ahead and highlight the key bits from this statement, which is most of it essentially, and kind of share my thoughts along the way. So here's what the statement reads like. "Call for strike Ubisoft Paris, Friday, January 27th afternoon. According to Guillemot, the ball is in our court, but the money stays in his pocket. You can just feel how pissed employees are at Yves Guillemot's statement and how betrayed they feel. By the way, the CEO essentially threw the workers under the bus. Within the confines of what is likely unreasonable circumstances that leadership has placed upon them, they did the best they could. But even when these employees give leadership everything, when leadership screw up, the way they respond is by saying, employees, even though you gave everything, you still didn't give enough. The union's scathing statement continues with, in his latest statement, Mr. Guillemot announces a worrying future for Ubisoft. If the request employees to be especially careful and strategic with your spending is ironic considering the company's editorial strategy of the last few years, it is not funny. When Mr. Guillemot speaks of attrition and organizational adjustments, it means staff reductions, discrete studio closures, salary cuts, disguised layoffs, etc. These are quotes from Yves Guillemot's email to staff, this bit right here. Each of you be especially careful and strategic with your spending and initiatives. And then another quote is a bit from Ubisoft's recent investors call, where they said that they aim to cut costs through targeted restructuring, divesting some non-core assets, and usual natural attrition, which the union interprets as a corporate and low-key way of basically saying staff reductions, discrete studio closures, salary cuts, disguised layoffs, etc., which is not inaccurate. In fact, Kotaku recently reported information that they obtained from 3 current and former Ubisoft developers who told Kotaku that they're already seeing cuts by way of fewer backfills for recently departed colleagues and fewer contracts getting renewed for those working on a temporary basis. They also said that there were layoffs across some of Ubisoft's US locations last fall, including its San Francisco office, so it's all already going exactly as the union is predicting, and that's because these corporations' maneuverings are pretty predictable at this point. We've seen the same patterns over and over again. The French union then raises some key questions. Mr. Guillemot asks a lot from his employees, but without any compensation. Have salaries kept up with the high inflation of recent years? If you ask Ubisoft Paris employees in the union, the answer would probably be no. What about the implementation of the 4-day week? What has been put in place for the teams that come out of the productions exhausted, like those of Just Dance or Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle? Briefly placing the spotlight on the abusive and crunch-filled work environment that Ubisoft can be. The statement then proceeds with the union's demands. We demand immediate 10% increase for all salaries, regardless of annual increases, to compensate for inflation. With the hundreds of millions of euros obtained from Tencent, there is money in the coffers of the employers. There is more than enough money in Ubisoft's war chest for them to be able to compensate employees better. Leadership refuses to because they will always prioritize making sure that the financial numbers look good for investors over the livelihoods of the people that they're responsible for. The corporation's human beings are tools to be used and discarded for their own corporate agendas. The union also demands improvement of working conditions, with in particular the implementation of the 4-day week. This is something that a lot of European countries have been aiming to shift towards, provide a healthier work-life balance that makes people more efficient when they are working because they're happier and they're not exhausted all the time and they're able to do their best work because they're happy. Finally, the union demands transparency on the evolution of the workforce, both locally and globally, and a strong commitment against disguised dismissals and a condemnation of abusive managerial policies that push employees to resign. Basically, keep your employees in the know and stop exploiting your employees with shady tactics. The union's closing statement doesn't hold back either. Because Mr. Guillemot and his clique only understand the relationship of power, Solidaires Informatique is calling on employees of Ubisoft Paris to go on strike on Friday, January 27th in the afternoon from 2 to 6 p.m. Now, I don't know how the strike is going to go or how much of an impact it's going to have and how many strikes will happen across the following days, weeks, and months. I don't think a single 4-hour strike is going to be enough to change Yves Guillemot's ways, given that despite all of the backlash and all of the negative PR and all of the complaints and protests that he's seen from employees in the last couple months and years because of both the workplace of harassment, abuse, misconduct, and discrimination that's also filled with crunch and exploitation of workers, as well as the dissatisfaction of developers and how management is handling the greenlighting of certain projects and the release of certain projects. Given that despite all that, Yves Guillemot continues to be stubborn and resolute in his awful ways, it's going to take a lot more than this one strike to ensure that he gets the message. To really have a tangible impact, you have to impact Ubisoft's bottom line. Employees have to disrupt the workplace on such a grand scale that Yves Guillemot will have no choice but to meet them halfway if he wishes for company operations to continue efficiently and for him to be able to report back to investors with positive results. So hopefully this is something that won't just happen the one time and then fizzle out. Hopefully these kinds of protests and strikes will be sustained in the coming days, weeks, and months until Yves Guillemot changes his attitude towards employees and the way he speaks to them and puts more value on them beyond, hey guys, work harder and slave away further because the ball is in your court, that kind of bullshit, until Yves Guillemot himself actually says, it is my fault, I misled the Ubisoft ship. I, as the captain, am responsible for crashing the ship into an iceberg. I led the ship in this direction. I should have done better. I should have known better. I should have had more foresight. Just Yves Guillemot, as a leader, needs to actually start leading instead of behaving like a monarch. Or even better, Yves Guillemot needs to be booted out of the company, and new leadership needs to grab hold of Ubisoft's reins and steer it back into something that provides a more hopeful future for both employees and customers who would like to see Ubisoft games come out in a better state or just have more inspired ideas. At the end of the day, the operational aspects of Ubisoft and how efficiently it runs as a company, all of these things, it all goes from top to bottom. It all starts with leadership making the right decisions and enacting the right policies and greenlighting the right projects and managing their workers properly. It's up to them to ensure that this whole machine is well-oiled and is chugging along efficiently. And Yves Guillemot, in the last couple years especially, has done a piss-poor job of that and seems to have no intentions of changing his ways. So Ubisoft, I say, is in dire need of a new boss. And as more time passes and the more Yves Guillemot opens his mouth, the more employees seem to agree, the more fed up employees seem to be getting. And there will come a boiling point. There will come a point where the straw or the tree trunk will break the camel's back. So brace yourself, Yves Guillemot, for that moment if you continue this course. Well, at the very least, that's one man's take on the latest surrounding Ubisoft's woes and employees' protests of Yves Guillemot's piss-poor leadership. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on everything that's been going on surrounding Ubisoft as of late. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.